everyone. If I could have your attention. Thank you for being here. My name is Lisa Warncott, and I currently serve as co-chair of the St. Bernard Chamber of Commerce Political Forum Committee with Jacques Alfonso. I'd like to thank all of you for coming out tonight to learn more about the candidates seeking office. We hope that you come back again tomorrow to hear from more of them. Before we begin, we'd like to extend a thank you to Roxanne Adams, St. Bernard Parish Government Clerk of Council, Rachel Segure, and Leo Murphy of the Parish Government Department of Film and Television, and of course the fabulous Randy Russo from WDSU for their assistance with today's event. Thank you, Randy. I'd also like to recognize the St. Bernard Chamber's 2023 annual sponsors. Without their support, events like this would not be possible. At the parish pillar level, Chalmette Refining, the Port of New Orleans, St. Bernard Economic Development Foundation, St. Bernard Parish Government, and Valero. At the commerce partner level, Associated Terminals and the Ranch. At the business advocate level, Clements Insurance Services, Complete Logistical Services, Gulf Coast Bank and Trust Company, and Silver Slipper Casino. At the chamber supporter level, Atmost Energy, EMR Metal Recycling, Frederick J. Segure Investment Company, Hancock Whitney, Ordez Electric, Rain CII, Richie Lewis Council at Large West, and SSE Steel Fabrication. Thank you for your investment in the chamber. I'd like to now introduce David Clement Sr., the 2023 Chairman of the St. Bernard Chamber of Commerce. David.
Thank you, Lisa. Before we begin with the rules for tonight, I'd like to make a couple of announcements. First off, early voting will be September 30th through October 7th. The primary election will take place on October 14th. To view ballots or find polling locations, visit www.sos.la.gov. Also, this is a reminder that the St. Bernard Chamber of Commerce does not endorse any candidate for elected office. The purpose of this forum is strictly educational. We believe it is important for the business community and for the public to have the opportunity to hear from and learn more about the candidates who are running for elected office. The questions used tonight were prepared by a committee of the St. Bernard Chamber of Commerce. We would like to thank the committee co-chairs, Jacques Alfonso and Lisa Borncott, along with the committee members for their hard work in preparing for tonight. Please note that no candidate or chamber staff member has had the opportunity to review these questions. During the forum, the candidates may request for a question to be repeated. Candidates may not, however, request for further elaboration or interpretation of the question. Candidates should do their best to answer the questions as presented by the moderator. Questions will not be taken from the audience. Candidates will be mindful of the timekeepers and will end promptly when his or her time to speak has ended. Candidates will be respectful of their opponents and refrain from any interruptions. Additionally, the audience will be respectful of all candidates and will refrain from any form of interruption. At this time, please also ensure that your phone is on silent. I would now like to introduce our moderator, Ms. Randy Russo. Randy is the morning anchor for WDSU This Morning News, and for 17 years has worked to tell stories showcasing the resiliency of the people of Louisiana. She got her start in broadcast journalism as an intern at WDSU and then hit the station's airways as a traffic reporter in 2009, soon adding general assignment reporting to a mix of daily duties thereafter. In 2009, she became an anchor, launching the station's 4 p.m. newscast before finding her home on the morning show. As an award-winning journalist, Randy reports on a range of topics from festivals to storm recovery, education, and breaking news. Her proudest job is mom to Jacques and Stella and their dog UEP, who share all their zest for life and love for Louisiana. Please join me in welcoming our moderator for this evening, my beautiful cousin, Randy Russo.
Thank you so so much, and good evening, everybody. Thank y'all for having me back again. This is a fantastic event and definitely crucial to St. Bernard Parish that I'm happy to be a part of each and every year as part of the St. Bernard Chamber Political Forum. Tonight, we are going to be covering candidates from State Representative, Council Districts A, B, and C, and then we're going to be back at it tomorrow to hear from the candidates running for State Senate, St. Bernard Parish President, Council at Large, East and West, Council Districts D and E. So at this time, we're going to get things going. We're going to start with those candidates who are running for State Representative to take the stage. All other candidates running for Council Districts A, B, and C, please join a member of the chamber in the council chambers, which is behind the stage. You will then be instructed on when it is your time. Candidates that will be participating tomorrow are welcome to stay in the audience, but we will not be using the same questions tomorrow night that we are tonight. So at this time, we are going to announce those candidates running for State Representative in alphabetical order. We have Mike Bayham, Richie Lewis, and Stacy Riley Sr., and they are currently taking their seats in the chamber area. Now, each candidate will be allowed to provide a 60-second opening statement. Then after the round of questions, a 60-second closing statement. Candidates will be asked a total of 3 questions and given 90 seconds to respond to each. As I mentioned at the beginning, if necessary, if you need me to repeat a question, I'd be happy to do so. You, again, may not ask for elaboration or interpretation of those questions. So first, we're going to get started with Mr. Mike Bayham, who's going to give us our opening statement. You can also pay attention to Jacques over here. He's going to be keeping time for us. So we'll start with your opening statement, Mr. Bayham.
Thank you. I'm Mike Bayham. I'm a graduate of Holy Cross High School in LSU. In 2001, I was elected a parish councilman, where I cracked down on property blight and led the parish flag redesign committee, established the Battle of New Orleans reenactment committee, amongst other accomplishments. I'm running for state representative for one reason. It's the office where I can most effectively serve our community. I worked in the state senate while at LSU and developed bills and amendments on legislation over the last few years. I have advocated for St. Bernard. I have helped work through the legislative process to secure millions of dollars to repair the St. Bernard Parish Jail and to get money to construct a new special operations facility for the Sheriff's Office on Paris Road. We need to have someone who will be a strong advocate for our community in Baton Rouge, and I would be honored to have that opportunity. Thank you.
Mr. Mike Bayham, thank you. Up next, we have Mr. Richie Lewis.
Thank you. My name's Richie Lewis. I'm running for State Representative District 103. I'm a lifelong resident of St. Bernard Parish. I've been married to my wife for 28 years, and I have one daughter, Madison, who graduated from Sherman High School in 2019. I've been on the parish council for the last 8 years. I served 12 years. I served 4 years as District C, 8 years as Councilor at Large West. 5 of those years I was chairman of the Finance Committee, and 4 of those years I was chairman of the council. My business experience, my civic experience, best qualifies me to represent St. Bernard Parish at the state representative level. I've done a lot of things around the parish. I've been involved in all of the parks you see, all of the bike paths you see, securing money from the state and the federal government, and not to mention the budget that we oversee. We won an award 7 years in a row. Never has that happened in the history of St. Bernard Parish for a clean budget and a clean audit. I feel like I'll be the best choice for state representative. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Lewis, thank you. Up next, we've got Mr. Stacy Riley.
Good evening, everyone. Stacy Riley, Sr., lifelong resident of St. Bernard Parish as well, graduate of St. Bernard High School. I graduated from Delgado Community College, LSU, and I served as military for 21 years as well. I'm running for this seat because I feel as though St. Bernard Parish has been ignored for a long time. I feel as though that I can work beyond party lines, even though I'm running as a Democrat, but I think I can be more effectively, I can get along with each side of the coin and make that transition over to making everything happen for St. Bernard Parish. Looking at the lower end of the parish, we definitely need some love on that end, and I think I can bring that to the parish. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Riley, thank you. We'll now have our first question. You will each have 90 seconds to respond. And I'm going to read the question now and again. We're going to start with Mr. Lewis, but if you all need me to repeat the question, please feel free to ask. So question 1, Bipartisanship and effective collaboration are crucial in politics. Can you provide examples of instances where you've successfully worked with those holding opposing views to promote the best interest of St. Bernard? And how will you bring this approach to your role representing our community as state representative? Mr. Lewis.
Okay, because she was looking at Mike, I'm sorry.
Oh, Mr. Lewis first.
I just didn't know if we had that right. So being on the council for the last 12 years, absolutely one of my talents is bringing people with different ideas and different perspectives together to work for a common goal. You know, I was on the council when we had an administration that was not so clear, and it was a battle every day to work back and forth, yet we still accomplished some things, and that was because you have to learn how to work with the other side. You have to work as a team member. One thing I can do, and this is also being in business, I have a very successful business here in St. Bernard Parish, and that's because I can get along with people that have different ideas, people that come to the table and, you know, you can argue about how you're getting somewhere as long as everybody's going in the same direction. And if you understand that, then it makes it easier to get the bipartisan bills or the bipartisan stuff taken care of, because, you know, being on the council, being in any of these elected seats, you have to have the art of compromise. You can't do anything by yourself. House of Representatives has 105 members, I believe, 106 members, and if you don't have 54 or 55 of them with you, you're going to be very ineffective. So I'm very confident that I have the ability to go to Baton Rouge, make friends, and get the best results for St. Bernard Parish.
All right,
Thank
Mr. Riley?
Yes, and I forgot to mention in my opening, I was a former school board member as well. And in that job, we had to make decisions, and sometimes you didn't agree with what the other side had to say, and you had to compromise on certain issues, as well as right now going to Baton Rouge. I work in New Orleans, and I'm friends or have acquaintances with many of the representatives right now. So I have an in-line opportunity to make those connections in regards to making things happen for St. Bernard Parish.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. And Mr. Bayham.
Thank you. Louisiana will almost certainly have a Republican governor. We have a Republican supermajority in the Senate and the House. However, everyone needs to be treated with dignity and respect, because everyone represents a constituency in this state. We're all Louisianians. And I'm very proud of the record I have working with Democrats and Republicans in the Louisiana legislature to get things done, like our jail repairs and our special operations unit. Senator Joe Bowie is a Democrat, St. Bernard's majority Republican parish, but he has been a great advocate for our community up in Baton Rouge on a lot of funding issues. I know he's worked with a lot of folks, our parish president, our sheriff, our DA, and others. And we need to be able to work with everyone, because we're not all enemies. We may have different views and different party affiliations and different labels, but we all want Louisiana to go in the right direction. High homeowners insurance affects everybody, Democrats and Republicans. One of the things I really appreciated was after Arabi tornadoes, the first congressman to set foot in this community to visit was a Democrat, Troy Carter from New Orleans. He came down here, he offered to help, and I respected that. And Troy has welcomed our delegation to Washington on many occasions to work on fisheries issues, even though he doesn't have a lot of fisheries issues in his congressional district. So everyone deserves to be treated with respect and dignity and courtesy, and that's something I'm going to do. It's something I've done working with the legislature as is, and will continue to do if honored to be sent to Baton Rouge.
Mr. Bayham, thank you. For the second question, as we all know, small businesses are the backbone of our local economy. Should the port be permitted by the Corps? How do you plan to foster an environment that supports entrepreneurship and provides resources for small business owners to thrive, particularly with respect to taking advantage of the port project here in St. Bernard? And Mr. Riley, we'll begin with you.
Yes. In regards to the port, if it is approved, I think that we need to jump on that opportunity to help them. And I believe the port is willing to facilitate some of the assets that they have in order to support the small businesses. We need small business developments and business which runs the economy. And the more business we have, the better tax base we'll have in regards to making things happen here in St. Bernard. So yes, if the port is approved, yes, I would be glad to work alongside them and try to make things happen in regards to small business accomplishments.
Thank you, Mr. Rowley. Mr. Bayham.
First, let me say this. The port is not a done deal. We've seen in a recent legislative session that in a matter of an hour, tens of millions of dollars that was put in the capital outlay budget disappeared. This thing is not a done deal, and I can tell you, if elected your state representative, I will fight to try to block the Violet Container Port coming to St. Bernard. Unfortunately, I'm very cynical about the Port of New Orleans. Why? What have they given us? The Mississippi River Gulf Outlet. Decades later, we had seawater in our bedrooms. So, you know, you have to be a little bit cynical when dealing with the Port of New Orleans and say that they're here to help, just like the Mr. Go was supposed to help our community. It certainly didn't. But I can tell you on issues regarding bringing business here in general, I'll be engaged with the Chamber of Commerce. I'll be engaged with economic development. We need to have direct leadership engaged, not photo op leadership. We need to have someone sitting down with businesses, letting them know that they can deal with St. Bernard Parish without having to worry about anything shady. You know, we need to show them that we're here to work with them to try to foster a good economic environment in our community. However, I don't think the port's going to be good for this community. I think it's going to be hard on our infrastructure. It's going to affect our property values, and that's something I'm greatly concerned about. In terms of working with the Chamber of Commerce on other business development, count me as an ally in the front, because I'll be there in those meetings, not just for the ribbon cuttings, but for the meetings to work on trying to bring these people here.
Mr. Bayham, thank you. Mr. Lewis.
Can you repeat the question for me,
Absolutely.
please?
So as we mentioned, small businesses are the backbone here of our local economy, and if the port is allowed by the Corps, how do you plan to foster an environment to support entrepreneurship and provide resources for small business owners to thrive, particularly with respect to taking advantage of the port project here in St. Bernard Parish?
Thank you. Nobody running for this office is more in touch with small businesses than me in this parish. When we talk about the port, I'm the only candidate up here that has publicly voted in opposition to that port, not once, but twice. And, you know, if we had the button to press, it would have been pressed a long time ago. However, the question is if the port does come here. So if the port does get allowed to come here, then we will work closely with the port to make sure that the port fits our culture and we don't fit its culture. This is our parish, not their parish. They've already given us, like Mr. Bayham said, they've already given us the Mr. Go, which was very detrimental to us once. We're not going to just blindly trust them to come in here and do what they want in our parish. So when it comes to working with the small businesses, I do that already. I'm already very involved in our chamber, in all of our business communities, offering advice and different things to the small business community. The port project is going to affect St. Bernard Parish, not just in Violet, but from Araby all the way through Violet. And we need to be prepared because it's going to take a ton of infrastructure if that port is allowed to come here. If I'm elected state representative, first and foremost, I'll do everything I can to try to not have that port here. But if it does come, I will do everything I can to make sure it fits our culture and we don't fit its culture. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Lewis, thank you. Now, federal support is crucial for implementing effective coastal restoration initiatives. What is your plan to secure federal and state funding to rebuild and protect our coastal marshes and wetlands? And Mr. Bayham, will begin with you.
Thank you. Very good question. I have a working relationship with every member of the Louisiana delegation in Congress. Some of these people have been friends of mine for 20 or 30 years. Garrett Graves, congressman from Baton Rouge, I met when I was a councilman in 2001 when I went up to Washington to deliver a petition to members of Congress demanding the closure of the Mr. Go before Hurricane Katrina hit. We need to have someone that already has those relationships. With St. Bernard Parish government, I've been the one that set up many of the meetings with our congressmen and in federal departments in a lot of cases. In addition to that, I have working relationships with members of Congress from outside of Louisiana, and I've been in on meetings with senators from Ohio and congressmen from Florida to advocate for our community. Things like trying to get more of the oil and wind revenue to help rebuild our coast. I've already got those relationships in place. I'm the best prepared candidate in this race to go up to D.C. to get things done, because some of these people I've worked with for many years. Kevin McCarthy, Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, is a friend of mine from 1998. He was a contributor of mine when I ran for councilman in 2001. This is someone I worked side by side with in the National Young Republicans. So in terms of having the existing relationships with the federal officials, I have that, and I will be able to be an effective advocate for coastal issues in Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Mahan. Mr. Lewis.
Yeah, thank you so much. So coastal restoration is so big in St. Bernard Parish. It was one thing that we absolutely paid attention to when we got elected in 2016. So far, we've brought over $1 billion of coastal restoration projects to St. Bernard Parish that's already happened or happening now. I've worked with the CPRA on many projects, been involved in the design. We have some projects of some islands, out to protect us. So coastal restoration is something that I've been in touch with a lot. When they started proposing the diversions way back in like 2010, 11, we were opposed to that. We've gotten that project shrunk down. We've worked with the guys in coastal, not only in Baton Rouge, but in Washington, to make sure that St. Bernard is always on the forefront and always on their minds when they talk about coastal money. If you look at some of the projects that we've done today, it's absolutely incredible the amount of money that we have brought to St. Bernard. It's historic amount of money that we have brought to St. Bernard already for coastal projects. So I will keep the relationships that I currently have and to provide further coastal restoration for St. Bernard Parish, because it is very important to our survival.
Mr. Lewis, thank you. And Mr. Riley.
Yes, coastal restoration is a very vivid issue here in St. Bernard, as well as climate change. And those are the issues that I would gladly go to Washington and speak to our congressmen and senators in regards to bringing funding down to St. Bernard in order to help facilitate those issues. As we look at this summer as a whole, how hot it's been, temperatures, I heard someone say it seems like the sun is sitting on the earth right now, because just how hot. So let me know that coastal change as well as climate change is a real issue that we really need to look at going forward.
Mr. Riley, thank you. We'll now begin our closing statements. Each of you have 1 minute to present your closing statements, and we'll begin with Mr. Lewis.
Thank you. I've been on the council for 12 years, and I've seen a lot of people come through in a lot of elections, and a lot of people talk about what they're going to do and they're going to get jobs. I don't talk about getting jobs, I get jobs. I've already hired hundreds of St. Bernardians, retained jobs. I've been in business my entire life. I've been in government. I've been involved in civic government for the last 16 years. Nobody up here is more prepared and more qualified to go to Baton Rouge and fight for the specific needs of St. Bernard Parish. I know these needs intimately because I lived them and breathed them every single day for the last 16 years. We can talk about the relationships we have in Baton Rouge and Washington, but not being able to go up there and influence people and make friends and get things done, then it don't matter what relationships you have. You have to have the ability to go up there and explain something in a way that everybody understands it. We know common sense don't involve itself in government. So you have to go with the attitude of making friends and getting results, because at the end of the day, it's every elected leader's job to get results for the residents of St. Bernard Parish. Thank you.
Mr. Lewis, thank you. Mr. Riley.
Yes, again, thank you for having us tonight. And I'm Stacey Riley, Senior, number 50 on the ballot. And I'm very proud to represent this parish in Baton Rouge, as well as the state of Louisiana as a whole. Just as Mr. Lewis just stated, that I think I have the ability to reach across the aisle, look them in the eye, not afraid to take on a challenge, as well as even with my own party. If it does not benefit St. Bernard Parish, I'm not afraid to go against the grain. That's the type of person that I am. That's the type of person I would be if I get elected to go to Baton Rouge. Not afraid to have those tough, hard conversations. Thank you.
Mr. Riley, thank you. Mr. Bingham.
Thank you. We need someone who can be effective from day one up in Baton Rouge. As Councilman Lewis already said, you need 53 votes to pass a bill in the House. You need 20 to pass it in the Senate. I have a working relationship with senators from across the state. When our money was getting taken out on the jail, I managed to get it put back in the Senate. We need someone who can be effective, because
You know, you only have one voice up in Baton Rouge. We have 105 state reps. St. Bernard only has one voice in that. No one in Shreveport and Natchitoches, Lafayette's going to be lying awake at bed at night wondering, wonder what's going to happen in St. Bernard. We need someone who will be that champion, someone that can get things done on day one. You know, I'm friends with many of the committee chairmen, I'm friends with the legislative leaders. I'm in a position where I could try to get these relationships to work for our community. We need a strong advocate in Baton Rouge and not an empty chair. I would be honored to represent our community in Baton Rouge, and I hope you'll consider my candidacy.
All right, we want to thank our candidates right now running for State Representative Mike Baham, Richie Lewis, Stacey Riley Sr. Thank you so much for participating in tonight's forum. At this time, you're now going to hear from the candidates running from Council District A, and as we kind of reset a little bit, I'll go ahead and read off their names for you. Patrice Cusimano, Jason Dana, Wayne McCarthy, Danny Murchison, and Christian Sullivan. Again, these are the candidates for Council District A.
Right here?
Anywhere?
And as y'all are grabbing your seats, I'm just going to read off some of the rules real quick, but each of you will be giving a 60-second opening statement, and after the round of questions, you'll also be giving a 60-second closing statement. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. Each of you will have 90 seconds to respond to each question, and if you need me to repeat a question, I'm happy to do so, but again, as we mentioned at the top, we can't do any interpretations or further elaboration of each question. So we will now begin our forum with our opening statements, and again, each of you have 60 seconds. We're going to begin with Ms. Patrice Cusimano.
Thank you, Chamber, for hosting this event. I believe that I am the best candidate for the District A Council seat. I have the time, education, training, and passion to represent District A going forward. I'm a lifelong resident of District A. I attended public schools here in St. Bernard, was graduated from UNO with a degree in political science, and from Loyola Law School. I worked at the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeal for 27 years, researching and writing legal opinions, and I retired at the end of 2020. I've been very active since before Hurricane Katrina in various civic, service, and government-related clubs and committees, such as the Council on Aging, the Kiwanis Club, my church, and its school. I was governor of a 3-state area for the Kiwanis District. I am the current president of the St. Bernard Library Board, and we are about to break ground on a new $12 million library building. I am prepared to represent the people of District A. Thank you.
Ms. Cusimano, thank you. Next, we've got Mr. Wayne McCarthy.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming out. My name is Wayne McCarthy. A lot of you probably have no idea who I am, and that's okay. I don't have as an extensive resume as a lot of people, but what I do have is leadership skills. Whether it's been on film sets, being in charge of hundreds of people at one time, or directing logistics for events across the Gulf Coast and coordinating across the country. And I believe that's what this parish needs at this point in its life. We need leadership, someone who can work with every facet of government to be able to bring us to a point where we don't have to rely on outside parishes and outside entities for the things that we need. How many of us are tired of driving around for everything? And I want to be able to bring that usefulness to the parish. And I believe my leadership skills will be able to do that. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Up next, we've got Danny Murchison.
Hey, everybody. It's simple. I've lived here most of my life. I worked for the Sheriff's Office, left here, went to New Orleans, spent 25 years as a New Orleans cop. I was a commercial pilot. I really didn't get into politics a lot, but I'm tired of people who are supposedly representing us and voting the way we don't want them to vote. That's why I got involved in this. I would represent you. What you want done, we will do. It's that simple. It's not hard, it's not rocket science. Whatever you want done, the yeas get it, the nays, however you want it done. I can't sell myself. I am who I am. I'm honest. This is it.
but I think I could represent you really well. Thank you.
Mr. Murchison, thank you. Up next, we've got Mr. Christian Sullivan.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Christian Sullivan. I'm a property developer, property manager, and a real estate agent, concentrating on the Araby area. I live in Araby Heights right now along the 40 Arkland with my beautiful wife, Casey. She works at the 5th Circuit Court of Appeals. She has been there for over 8 years. Since coming to the parish after Katrina, I've been involved in rehabilitating, selling, and building over 150 properties in the St. Bernard area. I've been revitalizing Araby for the last 6 years, and I've really concentrated on making the area a much, much better developed area than it has been in the last 15 years. Thanks to the buy and build program and the Sold on St. Bernard program, we've efforted to increase the tax base for that area. My 4 major pillars are parks, code enforcement, anti-port, and economic development. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to go to our first question, and again, each of you have 90 seconds to respond. Question 1, in your opinion, what is the biggest issue facing your district, and how have you prepared yourself to address that issue? And we'll begin with Mr. McCarthy.
Yes, the biggest issue addressing our district is its inability to adapt to the future. We have 2 very separate entities when it comes to St. Bernard, Araby. We have Old Araby, and then we have the Judge Perez side. They're 2 very distinct and different areas. One seems to have commercial development, the other is more residential. And the problem with the residential side is, I'm going to be completely honest, a lot of residents are getting priced out of their neighborhoods. I'm in the midst of rebuilding my house. I am spending way too much money on a house that should not cost as much as it does. And that has been something that has happened over the last few years. We are losing residents, but we are gaining residents. I drive through the neighborhoods all the time. Many of you may see me driving around in a green Corvette. I drive the district all the time to see if there's things that need to be done. And I see a lot of new faces, but then I see a lot of empty houses with for sale signs on them with astronomical prices. We prided ourselves on being a tight-knit, homegrown community, and that tight-knit, homegrown community has had to leave. I don't want to see the neighborhood become empty. And I think we need to address those issues.
Mr. McCarthy, thank you. Mr. Murchison.
What would I do if
I can read it again. In your opinion, what is the biggest issue facing your district right now, and how have you prepared yourself to address that issue?
Well, the first thing I would do, and it kind of takes in our district and St. Bernard Parish, is that the first thing I would want to do is time the lights in St. Bernard Parish. It is a major hazard. If you tried to cross St. Bernard Highway, good luck. If you try to cross Judge Perez, good luck. You're making U-turns. We don't have red lights in St. Bernard Parish. We have hanging stop signs, okay? They haven't been changed since 2006. If you try to cross, if you're on Center Street and try to cross Judge Perez, you got a 1 minute, 35-second wait for the light to change. It sounds insignificant, but it's going to, I know 1 fatality because of this. It's a major issue, and it needs to be addressed. And that, I would do that. That's the first thing to get us safely through the parish.
Okay, Mr. Murchison.
That's it.
Okay, thank you so much.
We can work on other things afterwards.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan.
One of the issues that's affecting us right now is affordability. Affordability due to insurance, flood rates. Way that we can bring that down is to start fortifying roofs, to take away some of the blighted properties in the area. If you fortify the roofs, your insurance should come down to roughly about $750 per average. This will help it to be a little bit more affordable and bring down the overall insurance rates in the area. I think another thing that we have a problem with right now is code enforcement. Code enforcement in the Araby area is basically, long and short, is non-existent. So certain things need to be cleaned up and bettered. I can't echo the amount of homes that are vacant in the area. not talking about the new construction, but I'm talking about a lot of the old properties that have been still uninhabited since Katrina. And I can't speak too much about Lower Arabi or Old Arabi, but the newer Arabi Heights area has recovered greatly from the tornado, and I think that we're heading in the right direction in that area right now. I'd also like to see a little bit more community development. To echo what he said, the area does suffer from a lot of new people, not knowing the other residents in the area. That will, I think, in time change with just a lot of people meeting each other over the next few years.
Mr. Sullivan, thank you. Ms. Cusimano?
One of the main parts of my platform on the district level is code enforcement. We have plenty of ordinances on the books, but if they're not enforced, they don't do any good. We have a lot of houses that have been added on to, illegal fences, people are running businesses out of their homes, and that brings property values down. And when people come here and they look at these beautiful new homes that have been built on the northern side of Arabi and in Carolyn Park, they look around the neighborhood and they say, I don't think I'm going to spend this much money for a home when I have this blighted home next to me, or a home that has a car shop being run out of the house. So we have the rules on the books, we just have to have them enforced. I'd like to see a full-time code enforcement department. And the code enforcement department is not just there to enforce, it's there to explain. If you want to put up a fence, you go to that department. We have community development now, and they will tell you, these are the rules, and you abide by those rules, and then there won't be any problems. We also need our neighbors to don't let someone do something you think is illegal. You don't want to alienate your neighbors, but you need to inform them that I'm not sure that what you're doing is legal or by code, so why don't you check? So I think that would go a long way to improve our neighborhoods, and it'll make everyone happier to be living together in District A.
Ms. Cusimano, thank you. The next question, if Louisiana International Terminal is allowed to proceed, how will you address rail traffic concerns in your district? And we'll begin with Mr. McCarthy.
So right off the bat, we all know what it's like to catch that train in the morning going to work. We know what it's like to catch that train coming home. We can time it on our watches. If that terminal goes through, we have to force them to build a outward railroad around the suburban area. There's no way around it. The rail traffic will not be sustainable on the rails that we have in this parish. Anybody who lives along the canal on Alexander, even just in the streets next to that, know that train passes 4 or 5 times a day. We hear it, we feel it, and we've lived with it. We have a lot of terminal action already on the river. But if that terminal does go through, then we have to force them to construct separate rail to alleviate that traffic, because the amount of trains that would go through that area, there might as well not even be roads going through it, by their own admission of the amount of cargo going in and out. The same with the road. They proposed that elevated highway that would connect to 510. We have to hold them to that if that goes through. It's just, we as a council need to be doing more to hold not just the terminal, but all businesses that come and settle in this parish to what they need to do in their due diligence.
Mr. McCarthy, thank you. Mr. Murchison.
Well, in the city, I know for sure that there's ordinances where big trucks can't go. Now, if this does go through, we can't stop it, and it does go through, we have to take a realistic look at it, what we can do, what we can't do. One of the things we can do is pass ordinance to keep those trucks from taking shortcuts like Norton or they have to stay on the state highway, because we know they're going to damage the infrastructure of the streets, and it'll mess up your house. Anyone who lives in the city knows big trucks come down the street, after a while you get cracks in your sheetrock. So we have to do what we can do, and the most realistic thing is we can pass the ordinance to keep them away from our homes and keep them on the federal highways, state highways. It's hard to say when you're dealing with the state, what we could force them to do. Who knows what we could force these people to do? We could pass the ordinance to protect ourselves and keep the damage down to a minimum. I agree with the railroad problem is going to be a problem. We know that. We know it's coming. If it does come, we know it's going to be a problem. So we have to pass ordinance that protect ourselves and protect our homes. That's the best we can do. We can only do what we can do. I'm finished.
Mr. Murchison, thank you. Ms. Cusimano?
I'm opposed to the port and have been from the very beginning. And I've reviewed the lawsuit that was recently filed on behalf of the parish. As an attorney, I think it has merit, but we all know that there's always a gray area. So depending on how the court comes down, we just don't know. If it does go against us and this port is coming, we need to start planning for that now. And I don't know that we can force the railroad to do anything because, and I hope I don't offend any railroad people in here, but they are the worst corporate neighbors you could possibly have. I know the railroad along St. Bernard Highway has not been pleasant, but we need to work with our state officials. And unfortunately, we know that all of our state officials' legislation is for this port. The current governor is for this port. And from what I've heard from the candidates for governor, they are also for this port. So we need to work with our state legislation to try to make this as painless as possible. They're the ones that can work with the federal legislation to have the railroads do what needs to be done, to have the trucking companies do what needs to be done, to put in the proper infrastructure to handle the amount of trucks and train traffic that we're going to have in this parish. And to make things as simple for us as we can, because this port is going to destroy our quality of life here in the parish.
Ms. Cusimano, thank you. Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, if the port does go through, which I will fight vehemently against, what we need to do is make sure that we bury them in as many environmental lawsuits as we possibly can to delay until they build the causeway, the Florida causeway that they plan. We want to take the traffic away from the St. Bernard Highway and the Judge Perez exits and take it out the back. Hopefully that will be the major trucking route. If that's the case, we just make sure that that happens before Shovel 1 is turned on the terminal area. And on top of that, what I would propose is I would propose overpasses on St. Bernard Highway and also Judge Perez to limit the amount of traffic. Of course, that's going to be very uncomfortable for a number of years, but better be uncomfortable for a short period of time than forever. Once something goes in, Mr. Go, Intercoastal, it's there and it's going to be there forever. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we have the exits from the parish well defined. Overpasses on Judge Perez and St. Bernard, in my opinion, are the way to go, and make sure that the causeway, the Florida causeway, is built before they get to put in Container 1. If those are done, that'll mitigate the amount of traffic that is, proposed from the port going through the back route. And that would be my ideas. That would be what I would fight for.
Mr. Sullivan, thank you. Question 3, what is your plan to promote economic growth between the Parish line and Chalmette, specifically on Judge Perez? And we'll begin with Mr. Murchison.
What would I say that again?
Sure. What is your plan to promote economic growth between the Parish line and Chalmette, specifically along Judge Perez?
The only thing I can offer, the only thing that comes to mind is that any business that comes here is looking for one thing, is safety. Okay? They don't want to be robbed. They don't want their stores looted. If we could promote what we are, a safe parish, and keep it that way, I think business will be tearing the walls down to get in, because the people here are solid people. If you give them a good service, they'll come. They will spend their money here. But the main thing we need to do, for anything, is safety. Safety is the most important thing. When people feel secure, whether in their homes or businesses, they don't mind opening a business here. They know they can come to work and they're not going to be robbed. Okay, and so we, even though that they, I mean, these urgent care centers are great and they bring in some money, we do need other types of businesses. How to attract them, to be quite honest, I'm not sure, okay? I'm not a member of Men's, I use common sense, I take the information, process it, and give you logical answers. What we can do, but I know where to go to find out that. But I know one thing's for sure, one thing you can take to the bank, people want safety. They want to be safe. And if a business knows he can open up here and make a decent profit and not get robbed, we shouldn't have any problems getting business at all. I'm finished.
Mr. Murchison, thank you. Mr. Sullivan, sorry.
In my opinion, what we need to do between the Parish line and Chalmette is, first off, create like a homogeneous look, look about the parish. We have too many individual storefronts that look like houses and that don't look like businesses that need to be updated. We could use some sidewalks from the Parish line further down. We have no sidewalks, we have no clear cut on Judge Perez. It's not a very welcoming walking area. Unfortunately, where we built right now does not lead for a bigger setback. A bigger setback would really, really help on bringing some better looks to the parish. As you come down further towards Walmart and this area, you have a further setback, allowing for parking, etc. Right now, we're kind of pigeonholed into what we have. So what we need to do is we really need to plan out with better signage, maybe some updating paint, etc. Help the current existing buildings look better. They do not look great. And we need to help them with better frontage, better parking, better signage, because as of right now, it's a mishmash. And that mishmash is kind of reflective of the businesses that are located there right now. We need to have a plan, have a total cohesive plan of what type of businesses you want to bring to that area and how we promote them.
Mr. Sullivan, thank you. Ms. Cusimano.
The first thing I would do is work with the state to try to get Judge Perez resurfaced between about the hospital to the parish line. The road is in deplorable condition, and of course, if these trucks start coming, it's only going to get worse. The road needs to be resurfaced. The buildings along there, I think if we work with the chamber to try and bring in some businesses that are attractive to the neighborhood, so some restaurants, we do have some restaurants there now, but the storefronts are not necessarily attractive. Work with them to help improve their buildings. And I personally don't like businesses with parking in front. I would like parking in the rear so that you can showcase the building itself. Sort of like what was done along St. Claude Avenue. If we could get some grant money and work with the state to improve that road. The road is beautiful as far as the trees and whatnot go, but the buildings, as Mr. Sullivan said, the buildings are so non-cohesive. They're everywhere mishmash. And to try and help the people that are there and attract the types of businesses that the people of Arabi want there. Not any more dollar stores or, we all know what I'm talking about, the type of stores we have too many of. But maybe some boutique type stores and some more restaurants that are more attractive to the people that live in this area.
Can I echo no more dollar stores?
Ms. Cusimano, thank you. And Mr. McCarthy.
So, all well and good, but we have to remember that our businesses along those areas are usually independently owned. Those businesses aren't chain businesses. We have to work with the owners of these businesses if we want them to redesign their business layouts. That's not going to be easy for a small business owner. What we need to do is we need to set up tax incentives to help those businesses that are already here to make improvements to their facilities, but also entice larger businesses. Like I said in my opening statement, we're all tired of driving to Metairie to go to restaurants. We're tired of going to New Orleans to go to restaurants. And a lot of us just go to chain restaurants a lot of times. If we do the right incentives, we can bring those businesses into the parish. There's 47,000 of us in this parish. You can't tell me we can't support some businesses in this parish that aren't going to close up in 3 months. Now, we look at Old Arabi and the thoroughfare through there. It's got a very distinct look, like I said. Now, Can we work with these businesses to maybe get a cohesive look on Judge Perez? Yes. But we can't expect them to just change what their business is and their layout to fit the image, because the image of St. Bernard that has lasted for so long has been the individual and the things that us as individuals have done in this parish to make this parish better. And those individual businesses, we still have to support them while we try and attract new business.
Mr. McCarthy, thank you. We'll now end with your closing statements, and we'll begin with Mr. Sullivan. Each of you have 1 minute to respond.
Closing, I'd like to reiterate that I have a 4-pillar plan for the Araby area. I'd like to better the parks, Patricia Park, Carolyn Park, and Vista Park. The kids in this area need a better playground to play at. They deserve it. The area can afford it, and I think that's one of the biggest things that we need to do. I'm big on code enforcement. I think code enforcement is one of the things that has been dropped recently in that area. I also definitely am emphatically against the port, and I'm big for economic development. I'm not from the parish, but I'm planning on dying in the parish. I plan on staying here for the rest of my life, so, you know, it's not a morbid thing. I'm not looking to leave. I love this place. I think it's a great place to live, and hopefully I've earned your support.
Mr. Sullivan, thank you. Ms. Cusimano?
I pledge to be a trustworthy public servant, one who listens to what the people of District A want and need, and to work my hardest to make those wants and needs come to fruition. I'm a fighter, and I'm not afraid to voice my opinion. After Hurricane Katrina, my husband and I did not hesitate to return to St. Bernard. We joined with our neighbors and hundreds of volunteers to help people gut their houses. It was hard, it was emotional, but as the people of St. Bernard Parish always do, we survived. No, we thrived. Since that time, our parish government has made tremendous strides, helping to rebuild our community. As your council person, I would like to continue along that path of prosperity, fighting to keep and enhance the quality of life that we hold so dear. I would greatly appreciate your vote on October 14th.
Ms. Cusimano, thank you. Mr. McCarthy?
So look, you're not going to get a pre-written statement from me and anything I ever tell you. I'm going to be deadly honest, and you can ask my wife. I made up my wedding vows on the spot, and that was probably the most deep and emotional thing I've ever said in my life. I love this parish. I've grown up all over it. My family started in Village Square. We moved down the road, and then I came back up the road to go to Andrew Jackson for high school. There are a lot of things that are great about this parish, and slowly things are slipping away. I want to use my leadership skills that I've learned in our school system on the sets of these movies that come here and film in this parish. The events that go on in this parish and around this metro area. I want to bring that leadership to the council. I want to think about ways to bring this parish into the future, and I hope you'll allow me to do it.
Mr. McCarthy, thank you. And Mr. Murchison?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just a simple guy like you guys, okay? I'm not going to promise you anything. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to tell you that we're going to do things that we can't get done. But I'll tell you why we can't get it done. I owe you that. I'll try the best I can for you. Like I said, my voice is just one of many in A. The nays, the yays, that's who gets the votes. You know, you tell me what you want done, I'll do it. But I'm not going to make promises. I'm not going to say that I'm going to do this and we're going to do that. I'm a very logical person. I was a cop, a pilot. I'm logical. If we can do it, we'll do it. If we can't, I'll tell you why we can't. That's the best I can do. I'm finished.
I'd like to thank now our candidates for Council District A.
Thank you.
All right, we're now going to hear from our candidates running for Council District B. Those candidates are Earl Dotrieve III, Josh Moran, and Brandon Wilson.
It doesn't matter which one.
Perfect, thank you, gentlemen. Each of you will be allowed a 60-second opening statement and a 60-second closing statement after our questions. Each of you will be asked 3 questions and given 90 seconds to respond to each. If you need me to, I can repeat the question for you when asked. I just can't elaborate or interpret each question. So we will now begin our forum with our opening statements, and we're going to begin with Mr. Earl Dotrieve. 60 seconds, please.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank the Chamber for having the forum tonight. My name is Earl Dotrieve. I'm a lifelong resident of St. Bernard Parish in District B. I've been married for 44 years with 4 children and 8 grandchildren, all of whom reside in St. Bernard Parish. I earned my degree in petroleum engineering in 1977 and worked 28 years at Murphy Oil Corporation. First as a certified pipe fitter, then 24 years as a certified electrician. I'm very fortunate to have served my community on the St. Bernard Planning Commission for 24 years, serving as its chairman for 20 years. During that time, I served on the Comprehensive Plan Committee, reviewing and approving the planning and development of the master plan and the master plan's economic development plan. As part of that committee, I spearheaded the design and development of the Town Center Park project at the site of the Old Village Square in 2007 and 2008.
Mr. Dotrieve, you've exceeded your 60 seconds. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
And if y'all could just speak closer into the mic so we can just hear you kind of in the back, too. Okay, thank you. Mr. Josh Moore, 60 seconds, please.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Josh Moran, current council member of District B and lifelong resident of St. Bernard. Husband to Christine of 17 years and father to Riley and Gavin. Local business owner and longtime community servant. To my District B family and friends, I am honored to address you as we embark on the re-elect Josh Moran for Council District B campaign. Looking ahead, progress is our compass. I am committed to building on our relationships with local and federal leaders to secure funding for vital projects. The responsible stewardship of our resources will be paramount, making every dollar count. Beautification and protecting our community from misguided plans are at the forefront. Your support is vital. It is the heartbeat of these goals. Remember, a vote for Josh Moran, number 65, is a vote for the experienced, dedicated leadership shaping our future.
Mr. Moran, thank you. All right, the first question, and again, you've got 90 seconds to respond. Question number 1, how would you obtain funding for a beautification project for businesses in your district, particularly with respect to the Parish Road corridor and removal of debris and trash in the bayous? And we'll begin with Mr. Moran.
Thank you. Being council member for District B right now, we just went through a process where we had a beautification project on Parish Road. That was funding from the federal government. We had a project in that department, and St. Bernard is blessed that we were able to take advantage of that funding. Moving forward, we need to make sure that we have people that are working with the state and federal legislators to make sure that we are taking advantage of every dollar that comes into St. Bernard Parish and leveraging our grant money to make sure that we make project for every district.
Mr. Moran, thank you. Mr. Dotrieve.
Thank you. My idea is to work with council members and our local state and federal delegation to find that there's some type of projects or grants that would facilitate having a beautification project along Parish Road. There has been a beautification project in the past, but there still seems like there needs to be more done on that. So I would definitely go and try to secure resources from federal agencies, state agencies, and of course grants.
Thank you, Mr. Dotrieve.
Thank you.
Question 2. Economic development is crucial for the parish's growth. What initiatives would you support to attract new businesses while continuing to support the existing ones? And Mr. Dotrieve, will begin with you.
Okay. I think that small businesses are always and have been an integral part of St. Bernard's economy and economic development. We need to drive local businesses and development by supporting friends and neighbors in the parish who have local businesses and to try to entice or bring new businesses into some of the vacant buildings, rental properties that we have, commercial rental properties. And I would also like to activate the St. Bernard Economic Development Plan that's in our master plan and use it to encourage to build some businesses that are not just small businesses, that are larger businesses with more employees. Thank you.
Mr. Dotry, thank you. Mr. Moran.
Could you repeat the question?
Absolutely. Economic development is crucial for the parish's growth. What incentives will you support to attract new businesses while continuing to support the existing ones?
And this question is very important for all of St. Bernard. We have major refineries surrounding our parish, and every time that they make investments into their parishes, they come to us for an item tax, which is a tax incentive to give them more incentive to produce more jobs for St. Bernard. That is something that we need to tout for St. Bernard. The PBF project for the renewable diesel is something that St. Bernard needs. We need more jobs. We need more economic development. We need more growth. We need to make sure that we're at the forefront of every project that St. Bernard has, and we tout it through the region. We make sure that every project is on the media, and we're doing a great job promoting it across the country. The PBF Renewable Diesel Project is a project that has increased our sales revenue across the whole parish enormously in bringing more jobs for our parish and more economic stimulus.
Mr. Moran, thank you. And the third question, what plan would you implement to tackle blight and code violations in your district? And we'll begin with Mr. Moran.
So we have, blight is one thing, right? But when you're working on the council and you start to understand the actual programs that we have in place, we already have laws on the books that actually state what we expect of our residents. When I took office in Council District B, I realized we had an issue with absentee landowners. We have people that own property in St. Bernard but don't live here. It's just a way for them to make mailbox money. We have to hold all of these people accountable, and we should have the most expect personal responsibility across the board, whether it's from our parish government, maintaining our roads and our streets and our landscaping, and make sure that we do the same thing for our homeowners. But that comes with a budgeted constraint that we have to make sure moving forward we are willing to fund that budget, and we have to be proactive. We have to set a standard from day one, and we have to follow it.
Mr. Moran, thank you. Mr. Dotry.
Yes. Blight in District B is a problem because a lot of the blighted homes have cease and desist orders that were granted by the court order. So St. Bernard Parish cannot go in and do anything to those buildings. But there are many blighted properties. We'll work with the council and resident services and the inspectors to go out and identify all the blighted properties in District B and see if there's any kind of way that we can resolve these situations, and if there's code enforcement violations, to cite them. It's been a long time since Katrina, and some of these buildings that have cease and desist orders are actually health and safety problems. So I would try to work with the parish attorney also to see if there's anything we can do to remove a cease and desist order, demolish the property, because I believe an empty lot is much more attractive than an abandoned house. Thank you.
Mr. Dotry, now we're going to begin our closing statements. You each have 1 minute, and we'll begin with Mr. Dotry.
Thank you. Right now, our parish is at a crossroad, facing many challenges and enormous magnitude that could affect our community for many years and our generations to come. With projects like this on the books and getting ready to be done, I think that my experience in engineering, planning, and construction make me, and objectivity, make me a better, make me a good candidate for District B, and I sincerely hope that I can humbly ask for your vote and receive your vote on October the 14. Thank you.
Mr. Dotry, thank you. Mr. Moran.
Thank you. District B, as we reflect on our accomplishments over the past 4 years, it is evident that the next 4 years is much more important. The period calls for the presence of proven leadership and experience. During my tenure as council member of District B, I have not only been privileged to serve, but also to introduce pivotal ordinances and resolutions that have impacted our community for the positive. As we've transitioned to the future, I'm excited to unveil the roadmap for the next 4 years. Join me in District B as we demonstrate leadership through tangible actions such as the Village Square Revitalization Development and the Parish Road Beautification Project. Remember, on voting day, you have the power to choose the experience and the future moving forward. I am Joshua Moran, candidate number 65. I am committed to forging a future we will all believe in.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. And again, we want to thank our candidates now running for Council District B. And thank you for your time tonight. At this time, we will now hear from those candidates running for Council District C. They include Carly Jackson, Cindy Meyer, and Joseph Montalbano. Yeah, I think anywhere without a white piece of paper, I think. Yes. While you're getting seated, each of you will provide a 60-second opening statement. I'm going to give you 3 different questions. After answering those questions, you'll then get a 60-second closing statement. For each question, you'll get 90 seconds to respond. And just pay attention to Mr. Jacques over there. He's our timekeeper. If you'd like me to repeat a question for you, I certainly can. I just can't elaborate on it or interpret each individual question. And speaking to the microphone, this way they can kind of hear you all the way in the back. All right, so we're going to start off with our opening statement. Each of you have 60 seconds, and we'll begin with Miss Carly Jackson.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for taking time out of your day to attend and learn a little bit about the candidates. My name is Carly. I relocated to St. Bernard from the West Bank about 11 years ago. I wanted to live in a community with strong public schools for my children, and I have never looked back. Since moving here, I've taken every opportunity to be involved and give back to this community. It started with a large park cleanup at Torres and then snowballed into other park projects, graduating Leadership St. Bernard, serving on the Parks and Parkways Commission, spearheading the traffic art boxes, and completing multiple tree planting projects. I've even coached my son's soccer team a couple times, even though I'm probably not very good at it. I am now serving in my 2nd term on the St. Bernard Parish School Board. This role has given me a unique set of tools and insight that would allow me to easily transition into serving you, the constituents, in a new capacity as councilperson for District C. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Ms. Cindy Meyer, 60 seconds.
Good evening. I'm Cindy Meyer, a lifelong resident of St. Bernard Parish. I have 2 beautiful daughters, Ashlyn and Mia, along with an amazing son-in-law, Zach. I've always felt the desire to serve within many business organizations, nonprofits, and my local church. I'm a candidate that knows how to lead by example. I believe in transparency and integrity and promise to be a leader that you can trust and will listen to. I can make the tough decisions when needed. I want to improve our quality of life by working to stop Port Nola, develop working relationships with first responders and all parts of parish government, working with our recreation department to enhance programs for the betterment of our children. This is just a few of the many things I am determined to accomplish in our district. With my background in insurance and in financial services industry, I can ensure fiscal and integrity and accountability for our district. I'm also able to lead our district in the unfortunate facing of claims and disaster management. I want to use my enthusiasm, determination, business, and leadership experience to move us forward. I would love the opportunity to serve you as Council C. Thank you.
Ms. Meyer, thank you. And Mr. Montalbano.
Thank you. I'm Joe Montalbano, lifelong resident of St. Bernard Parish, married to Denise Montalbano, 41 years, a testament to my commitment and endeavor to finish what I start. We've raised 2 children, 4 beautiful grandchildren. We've enjoyed a great quality of life here in St. Bernard, and I will strive to see that that continues for your children, grandchildren, as well as ours. I've worked 43 years in the construction industry, in construction management, where I excelled in managing budgets, schedules, and projects in the hundreds of millions of dollars. I've handled construction negotiations, labor negotiations, day-to-day interactions with our legal teams, architects, and engineers. I was the company liaison and spokesman for state, local, and federal agencies. I handled natural disasters, including the Brightfield disaster when the grain freighter struck the Riverwalk in Hilton. I am now retired and prepared to dedicate myself full-time to Council District C, where I know my education, skill set, and training combined with the lack of day-to-day distractions of a job, raising children, or running a business, I will be available to the citizens of St. Bernard District C
60 seconds,
and
I'm
beyond.
sorry. Thank you very much. All right, we now have our first question, and again, you've got 90 seconds to respond to each. First question, transparency and accountability are important in local government. How do you plan to maintain open lines of communication with constituents and ensure that decisions are made in a transparent manner? And we'll begin with Ms. Meyer.
I believe that it is important to, with my background and my working knowledge of business acumen, the departments and committees that I've been on, to be able to have the ability to lead and to hold people accountable. I would like to see that first. That's going to develop, we need to develop relationships with the constituents, which may entail holding some town hall meetings, being included on their forums, and just being that, having that open line of communication to be able to speak with them and hear them, and then also to be able to have that, to be able to deliver to the council and to wherever it needs to go, to be able to work through those situations and problems.
Thank you, Ms. Meyer. Mr. Montalbano.
Would you repeat that, please?
Absolutely. So transparency and accountability are important in local government. How do you plan to maintain an open line of communication with constituents and also ensure that decisions are made in a transparent manner?
I'll take my years of training and building teams that work together to complete a task. I will use that to work with difficult people. Consider myself a subject matter expert in de-escalating confrontations. I have the patience to sit down and review budgets, contracts, and explain these to the constituents of the neighborhood where I'll be constantly available. I'll be seen throughout the neighborhood on a weekly basis. I will schedule any appointments, morning teas, coffee breaks, whatever, to meet with the people of the parish, and I'll hold my fellow council people accountable to follow the fiscal budget, make sure that we spend the taxpayers' dollars wisely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Montalbano. Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. So as someone who has been serving in an elected capacity for a few years now, I think the best way to continue having transparency is just to maintain the relationships that I've already built with constituents and keep the lines of communications open. I think being at community events and just being available and seen and approachable for people to speak to you is the best way to continue to maintain those relationships and just to be open and available.
Ms. Jackson, thank you. Question number 2. How will you make sure that recreation funding is directed toward properly maintaining and operating recreation facilities within the parish, more specifically the facility at Valeries, which is in need of repair? So we're going to begin with Mr. Montalbano.
The facility at Valeries, I believe, is used as a source of income from the parish, as we mostly have tournaments there to raise money. Those monies collected and raised should go back into the recreation budget to maintain those repairs. I think there was oversight, and when we received the Valeries complex, the contractor should have corrected before he was allowed to leave the job site, but that's for another day. I also believe we need to put more money in the recreation for activities that are not a contact sport or require a ball. I also think we lack on activities and recreation for our older people, adults and stuff. We do have some ball games and stuff like that, but I'd like to see maybe a horseshoe range out there where guys could go do horseshoes, maybe a putt-putt golf. We could get a company or business from the community to each sponsor a little putt-putt hole along the walking trail where a family could go walk with the kids. You can check out some clubs and balls at the concession, go around the course, play a little putt-putt golf and enjoy it. There's a lot to expand on that. Really is. Thank you.
Mr. Montalbano, thank you. Ms. Jackson?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. How will you make sure recreation funding is directed toward properly maintaining and operating recreation facilities within the parish, more specifically the facilities at Val Reese, which are in need of repair?
So I do not have unique insight into the current budget and what monies are budgeted specifically for recreation. I do agree that recreation is one area that could probably use a little bit more attention and oversight from the parish. I think recently when the parish shifted from recreation being primarily a parish-run organization to the Booster Club, probably was a little bit of an overcorrection. And I think we need to shift a little bit more back to the middle and have more partnership with the parish. And I think, as one of the other candidates said, monies that are raised by the recreation department should stay with the recreation department. And I think we would just need a little bit more information about how to make a good decision to correct some of those issues moving forward.
Ms. Jackson, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Meyer?
Could you repeat the question just to make sure I answer it correctly?
Sure. How will you make sure recreation funding is directed toward properly maintaining and operating recreation facilities within the parish, more specifically the facilities at Val Reese which are in need of repair?
Well, in order to be able to hold accountable, you need firsthand information and be able to dive into the budget, to be able to have that open line of communication with your board, with your council who's handling it, so that way you can make sure that that money is allocated to where it needs to go, that it's properly spent, develop that working relationship with the head of the rec department as well to make sure that the funds are being used properly. And I feel that just by opening those lines of communications, being available, having that communication, and just being able to hold them accountable that it's going to get spent that way.
Ms. Meyer, thank you. Third question. What areas of the current budget are, in your opinion, mismanaged, and how will you correct the ineffective allocation of monetary resources if you are elected? And we'll begin with Ms. Jackson.
Unfortunately, that's a really difficult question to answer without having intimate knowledge of the budget. I think that there probably are some areas that some fiscal tightening could happen, but it's really difficult to answer that without having more information and insight into what's going on and what exactly are the issues. I know that there's been a lot of talk about, the fire department and how to best solve some of the budgeting issues that have happened in that arena. And I know that a consulting firm has been hired and, they're in the process of making some really difficult decisions. I think you just have to be open to looking at the information available and maintaining good relationships within the administration building to be able to solve some of those problems.
Ms. Jackson, thank you.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Meyer?
I don't know that I feel that there's any specific one area where funds are being mismanaged. It's most likely in many different areas from top to bottom. So the only way to be able to dive into that is to really be able to be involved in that decision making, to be able to have use my skill set and my background in financial services to if I am elected, that I can get on that board and get a hold of that budget to be able to make some tough decisions that may need to be made. Also, again, to hold accountable where the money needs to be allocated to if that money is allocated, and you just have to stay on top of it. So I agree that there is definitely some mismanagement, but we could all not that there's any disrespect to the current administration, but there's always areas that can be improved. So I would love to be able to be a part of that and to be able to fine-tune the budget for this parish in the betterment of our community.
Ms. Meyer, thank you. Mr. Montalbano?
Thank you. I would start by rolling up my sleeve, opening the books, do a comprehensive study on where we've spent money, and then I would find ways through planning, because without a plan, you plan to fail. And by planning, I would look for more efficient ways to make purchases of the most commonly used items in the parish. I would go out to vendors with solicitation to bid on those most commonly used items. Then I would delve into the next area of contracts. I would like to see contracts, the local contractors, businesses from St. Bernard, be given some type of a discount, 2%, anything, we'll come up with something. And let those get preference so that we keep those tax dollars in St. Bernard. We fund the businesses here, we fund the tax part here, and we can improve the quality of life. But without any knowledge of the current budget, I can't go any further than that, but promise to open the books, delve into it, and come up with a good comprehensive plan to improve. There's always room for improvement and efficiency.
Mr. Montalbano, thank you. You will now have your closing statement. Each of you has 1 minute, and we'll begin with Ms. Meyer.
I would like to thank the St. Bernard Parish Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event, and I would like to thank my opponents for giving their time as well. I'm committed to actively and continually listening to the people's voices and concerns so that you can trust me in our parish government. In my business, I get a chance to speak with residents daily. I enjoy hearing about their great days and share in some of their frustrations within the community. I want to empower the residents to grow and not to lose faith in our local government. My heart is deeply embedded in this community. I have the leadership, passion, and knowledge to listen to you and make necessary changes. Let's not be content with complacency or the status quo. Rather, to be encouraged to make St. Bernard the best that it can be. I will need your help to accomplish this, so I humbly ask for your vote. St. Bernard Parish, Council District C. Thank you, and God bless you and this parish.
Ms. Meyer, thank you. Mr. Montalbano?
Thank you. I'd like to say that being retired, I'll be able to devote myself full-time to St. Bernard Parish, Council District C, and beyond. One parish, one people. I will not benefit my own district at the cost of another. Like I said, one parish, one people. And that's it.
Mr. Montalbano, thank you.
I'm done.
Ms. Jackson?
Your next council person should be someone who is independent, tough, and not afraid to say no. I am that person. Your next council person should be someone who approaches every decision with research, deliberation, and thought. I am that person. Your next council person should be someone who has experience and who understands the process. I am that person. And lastly, your next council person should be someone who represents you, who communicates, responds, and listens to what is important to you and what you want and need. I am that person. I thank everyone again for their time this evening, and I look forward to continued engagement and communication throughout and after Election Day. Good night.
Ms. Jackson, thank you. And thank you to all the candidates from Council District C, as well as all the candidates who joined us this evening. Thank you. And at this time, I'd like to turn things back over to David Clement Sr.
Ladies first.
Thank you very much, Randy. Flip to the right page. Thank you all again for attending tonight's political forum. Thank you to all of our candidates who chose to participate tonight. We do appreciate your participation. We will be back here again tomorrow night at 6 p.m. to hear from candidates running for State Senate, St. Bernard Parish President, Council at Large East, Council at Large West, Council District D, Council District E. A recording of tonight's program will be made available through the Chamber of Commerce's YouTube channel. We also encourage each and every one of you to download the St. Bernard Chamber of Commerce app on any Android or Apple device. You can watch this event live, streamed through that Chamber of Commerce app. The app will also highlight several features that will highlight and incentivize our business community. Have a great night, everyone, and thank you very much. And please do not forget out to vote. Thank you very much.